This is part 22 of Breath of the Wild Let's Play series, and this part will be starting off with this ancient song from Kass, where he kind of talks about what exactly happened 10,000 years ago. We'll talk to Lawdon and kind of learn about the stable system. We'll sell and buy some stuff from Beedle. Behind the scenes right now, I did not put my notes in my microphone in a good spot. I am literally looking away from my microphone to get my notes and everything, so I'm a little off. And then we'll also learn about the Rumor Mill Volume 5, where we kind of learn about dragons actually existing.
Now, this ancient song we get from Kass, I was a big fan of. It's kind of important because it does tell us a little bit about. For one thing, it kind of hits on the prior Zelda games where it just says Ganon keeps coming back over and over again, and there's always the princess and the hero there to fight him, and that kind of ties in with the fact that we've been fighting Ganon in all these Zelda games, so I really like that touch. But it also hits on the building and the creation of the divine beasts and the guardians as well.
And really, this is probably I want to say it's the biggest story part of Breath of the Wild, but if it's not, it's definitely up there. So I think this ancient song is very important, like you said, to kind of get some backstory on the game, how the divine beasts were created, how the guardians were created, and what exactly they were used for. And if you're missing this piece of information, you'll get a little something from the memories, but like I said, I think this is really the most storytelling part of the game.
It really is, and just that kind of ties in with the entire storytelling mechanic that they chose to go with Breath of the Wild. So much of the stories are told through the memories that we'll encounter throughout the game. I don't think we haven't hit any of them yet, but the memories, the song that we're getting from Kass right here, and then stories from Impa and a few other main characters, is just so much of the story is told in flashbacks, where it seems like the last couple Zelda games, your Twilight Princess, your Skyward Sword, the huge bulk of the story was told through long cutscenes instead.
Now, the whole thing with the 10,000 years ago, that really kind of, I wonder where that's at on the timeline now. We don't really know because we don't know where Breath of the Wild falls on a timeline, but I found myself thinking today, where's that in relation to Skyward Sword? Is it before Skyward Sword? Is it after Skyward Sword? Is it right around the same period? And that's what's kind of cool about the timeline, even though it doesn't make sense in certain places. We can really kind of think about this game like that, and okay, 10,000 years ago, where was that in relation to Skyward Sword? I don't know, Minish Cap, Ocarina of Time, so it's just very cool to think in that way.
And it's funny because we had two very different interpretations. Like you mentioned, maybe the 10,000 years was even before Skyward Sword.
Yes.
My first thought was all this technology and stuff was built after whatever the last game in the timeline is, whether you're thinking, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, whatever.
Yeah.
Whichever timeline you're on. And then we're going even 10,000 more years beyond that. So the fact that they chose to tell the story this way and make that big of a time gap, it really lets you kind of put it wherever you want to on the timeline until Nintendo comes out and officially says, if they ever do.
They'll need to put down legal paper if it's actually 10,000 years after the last Zelda game. That'll need to be on legal paper just to fit that huge timeline in right there. Although you could scale it down to make sense or whatever.
You could scale it down to make sense.
That is a very interesting point though right there. This game could literally take place way after the last game on the timeline that we have right now, which in part can make the 10,000 years even after a game. So never really thought about, as you said, I never really thought about that. And it is really cool to think about that. But I also love just something very simple, the rhyming right there and the music that went along with it. We kind of got some of those classic Zelda scores.
We did. It was you could hear pieces of Ganon's theme and a little bit of the main Zelda overworld theme from the classic games. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of hit on music a little bit in our commentary so far, but it's there's not been many instances where we've heard the classic Zelda music. And in Kass's story there, they at least had parts of it or little stuff that was a little bit of a callback to it. So I'm with you. I really loved that little touch in the ancient story. It was great to hear a few of those I'm thinking the ancient song. Great to hear some of those older Zelda themes in there.
And as he's going back and talking about years past, he should kind of use that music at the same time, even though, like you said, we kind of had some different music with Breath of the Wild. Now, that's one thing I actually liked, but at the same time, it was nice. Get those classic tunes in that we hear. Now,
you got to get them in there.
I believe with that story right there, I think there's some different I know there are some different stables that you can talk to Kass at, but I believe that ancient song that he always offers is the same thing as what we just saw right there. So that kind of stunk. I wish they kind of would have built a little bit, the first one you talk to gives you the first part. The second one you talk to gives you the second part, instead of all of them having the exact same story.
I agree with you, and for some reason, I mean, and you'll see in the recording, and unless we creatively edit it out, that I talked to him and listened to that story.
Oh, we'll edit it out. It won't be there.
But at least I talked to him at least one more time before I caught on that it was the same story. And what threw me off is that when you're listening to the story, he says something about now comes the second verse. And when I heard it the second time, I thought in a different stable, I thought he was literally singing a new part of the story. And it wasn't until I listened all the way through it or read all the way through it, whatever, that I realized, oh crap, never mind. This was the exact same one that we listened to the first time. So I'm with you 100%. I wish he would have had like more parts to the story or maybe broken it up into several smaller parts. But, it was good to get the whole thing all at once, I guess.
I kind of talked right past it right there, which we do quite often, to be honest with you. Half the time, I'm not even looking at my screen when we're talking about these things. I got a timer like on my screen, and that's really all I look at a lot of times. But anyways,
that's all we need.
I'll get to the point that I was going to make here. We kind of skipped over Lawdon right there, and he kind of talked to us about the stable system. Now, you kind of heard us already talk about it a little bit. We really didn't use horses that much in the game, but the stable system, it can be very beneficial, I think. There's always a shrine nearby, so you can get there very quickly, and it's a good way you can store up to 5 horses, and basically you can go to any stable and get any of those 5 horses you want to at any time. So just makes it like it kind of acts as a fast travel destination.
It really does, and I'm a fan of the system. Like you've said, we don't use the horses a lot, but just being able to, like, once you tame a horse and register it at the stable, it's great to be able to go to any stable in the world, even if you've left your horse out in the wild somewhere. You can go to the stable and they will retrieve it for you, and you can get it.
That is awesome.
Like, basically instantly. So it is great, and I know you mentioned behind the scenes that at first you weren't really sure that you could get.
we don't need to mention everything that I tell you behind the scenes, okay?
Hey, but it's funny. It's fun, and it's good for people to know. It's like the original thought was maybe you could only get that horse from that stable, but it's great to be able to get it from any stable you want to.
Yes, Red, that is true. I thought like you could only get that horse at that certain stable. So basically my thinking is that you went to each stable and registered 5 different horses at each stable, and that's how the game worked. And I picked up on it kind of early on, but it's one of those things I wish I would have found out a little bit faster, because then I might use the stable system a little bit more. So it was kind of nice when I finally figured that out, that all my horses are here, but physics wise doesn't really make a lot of sense how all those horses are in the same place. It's kind of like Santa Claus, to be honest with you.
Hey, those horses get all the way around the world in one night. So it's Now, the stables do serve several other purposes that you'll see. Beedle is at every single stable. He's always either inside or right outside the stables, and it's great to see a character from previous Zelda games make an appearance, because we remember him from Wind Waker and also from Skyward Sword. And it's just great to see a recurring character like that. And anytime you go to a stable, same with your horses, we know that we'll have a merchant that we can sell stuff to.
Yep.
And also at every single stable, he also sells arrows, which can be really important if you're running low. You always know a person you can go buy more arrows from.
Now, he will go outside the stables, but trust me, he does not move very fast. I'm sure a lot of you all know this, so you can easily catch him. But one thing that I love about Beedle is that we kind of get a different iteration of him in every single game, like exactly what he's doing. Like in Wind Waker, he was on the boat. In Skyward Sword, he's on that little airship, whereas this one, he's kind of just walking around. So even though he's been in a lot of games, like Nintendo always kind of switches him up a little bit and makes him different. But I found him, like, I really didn't buy a lot from Beedle. Probably should buy some more arrows, that you've heard me complain through numerous parts. But what I ended up doing was I ended up selling him a lot of gemstones, because I always knew he'd be in a certain area where I could sell them to him.
Now, I always loaded up on arrows from him just because I never knew when I would need them. But I'm with you. I used him to sell stuff more than anything. And you saw that along with the gemstones that I sold him, I also sold him a ton of just little like 3 rupee, 5 rupee monster parts that I had 40 and 60 of there in my inventory. And for me, it was just an easy way to rack up some rupees early on. When I first came and talked to him, I literally had 1 rupee. So in the monster parts, like, or at least like the Bokoblin parts that I sold him, you only get a couple rupees for each one, but if you fight enough of them, you can always reload on those items, and that's why I already had so many. in my inventories because, as you've seen, I've kind of tried to clear out some camps and everything.
Yeah, definitely.
But those cheap monster parts do add up when you sell him 20, 30, 40 at a time. So, and for me, being so low on rupees at the start, I wanted to go ahead and pad my bank account a little bit.
My thing is, if I sold something, I wanted to get like a lot of money per piece. Like I'm talking like if it didn't get 10 or 15 rupees, I was not going to sell it because I just thought I was getting rid of too much and not making enough value. Now those monster parts will come in handy later on in the game. We'll need them to we'll meet a monster store guy later on in the game that we can like use our parts to get different clothing items basically. But I believe they're also used for like different items throughout the game, whether it be we'll see some great fairies later on, different things like that. So a lot of those little parts like that, I wasn't sure how I was going to need to use them in the game.
Yeah.
So I kind of made sure that I didn't sell them too quickly and not be able to get anything later on.
They can also be used for making elixirs, which I didn't do a ton of, but this will go ahead and wrap up part 22 of our Breath of the Wild video series.